Thank you for coming. Thank you for writing this piece. This is a testament to investigative journalism. How long does it take to write this piece?
Well, it took about a year.
Yeah.
A little more than a year, but I was doing other things in the middle.
What exactly are forever chemicals? What did 3M do? What were you uncovering in this piece?
Yeah. So I was writing about forever chemicals, which are PFAS, is the name of the compounds. And basically, they're called forever chemicals because they last forever in the environment, and they accumulate in your body.
Yeah.
And we all knew, we've known for a while, that 3M made these chemicals, and I have been reporting on them for a while.
Yeah.
What was new with this story was that someone who had worked in the company came to me and offered to tell me her story.
Right.
And it ended up shedding terrible light, really, on the company and on the delay, the decades of delay for them to reveal the truth of what was going on.
She was testing blood and was finding that everyone's blood had forever chemicals in it. And how did 3M respond to her research?
Right. So she was asked by her boss to test all these blood samples. And these were samples of blood from the general public.
Right.
So she starts testing them, and she keeps finding trace amounts of this chemical, PFOS, which was made by her employer, in everyone's blood. It's not supposed to be there, right? And then she tests different parts of the country, she tests animals, and she finally brings her results to her boss. And in response, her superiors were not happy with her work. She thought they would be happy. Hey, you found this amazing thing.
She's a scientist.
Yeah, she's a scientist. She's in the environmental lab. That's her job, right? And in fact, what they ended up doing was questioning her and saying, this can't be right, and your equipment's probably messed up, and why don't you repeat the experiment? And eventually, what she finds is that there was another chemist at the company who had discovered the same thing in 1975, so decades earlier.
And what you talk about in the article, but part of what solidified her belief in her research was she actually tested old blood.
Yeah.
What was that?
So she's testing all these samples from around the country, and they all contain PFOS.
Right.
And her bosses started saying, oh, you think...
You get PFOS, you get PFOS, you get... It's like, we all got it.
Yeah, and they start saying, are you sure? Because maybe you just think it's everywhere, right? You just are delusional, basically. And then she ends up testing a sample from rural China and an old sample. And it was the first one she tested that didn't have any of the chemical in it. Wow. And she realized, here it is.
Someone in rural China who's probably dead at this point doesn't have forever chemicals in their blood.
And then she ended up testing someone, a war veteran who the blood sample was from 1957 before Scotchgard entered the market.
So let's talk about that. What are forever chemicals in? You mentioned Scotchgard.
Right. So initially, they were in Scotchgard, which is this coating for fabrics. And
carpets.
Yeah, and carpets.
Couches.
And then they had also a product that was for food packaging, and it was also in firefighting foam. And that was the beginning. Now I cannot name all the products that it's in. Thousands, really. And, you know, the companies say they're in every car and cell phone, they're in makeup, they're in everything. And, you know, 3M put out a little spreadsheet in 2022 of just their products that contain PFAS, and it had more than 16,000 entries.
I love that they put out a spreadsheet in 2022, and they've known about this since 1975. So 50 years later, super helpful. Do you, when you start digging into this, do you ever just want to go, I don't want to hear about this shit?
Well, you know, when I dig into this, what I want to do is tell people. And that's why I'm here, you know. I mean, it is utterly depressing, but I think it would be slightly more depressing not to report on it.
Well, yeah, I mean, your article triggered my awareness, and then I remembered the Mark Ruffalo movie, Dark Water, and then I remembered I looked you up and you had written about this even before that, and it's like, holy shit, we got to pay attention to this stuff. You know, I have a 4-year-old daughter, and I often am trying to tell her to stop being so pushy, right? Hey, chill, you can't keep pushing back. But then I meet you and I read this and I heard you say that you've got to be pushy to dig in and fight against 3M that made $14 billion last year.
Yeah.
Am I a shitty parent?
Well, to be an investigative journalist, you do have to be kind of pushy. So it depends on whether your daughter wants to be an investigative journalist or not. I mean, we're
working on just putting her pants on at this point.
I mean, you have to find out things that people don't want you to know. And so, so with this story, the response I got from 3M when I was writing about this in 2015 and 2016, it's
this is,
it's totally different from the story I got from someone who was on the inside, and it only took me 9 years.
Right. Is there something that you do now differently in your life, a habit, knowing what you know? Are you not drinking water out of the hose like we did in Michigan growing? I mean, is there just something besides? Because look, a single American citizen taking on 3M or DuPont, because 3M's not the only company with these. What can you tell me that I can do or you can do besides being aware, which is a positive step?
It is.
Yeah.
And it is so widespread now, as you said. It's in tons of products. It's in water all over the place. So I don't. Actually, I mean, I don't use nonstick pans and that kind of thing. That's easy, or microwave popcorn. That's easy.
Don't use microwave popcorn.
Okay. And I have to say, I don't know how it's been if it's been reformulated recently, but that was one of the original things that it was in.
Yeah. I'm sticking by what I said earlier.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, honestly, as an environmental reporter, a lot of things, horrify me. I would say actually my reporting on plastics maybe left me with more of a, change my habits. So like I don't use single-use plastic because you cannot.
Well, and my question is flawed to you because I always find in capitalism the onus goes on us.
Yeah.
Right? Like, hey, Sharon, why are you using that plastic bottle? And it's like, well, I assume what's on the shelf is safe for me.
Yeah.
And that's not a safe assumption. And does our government step in on this? Where are they on this?
Well, there are a lot of government failures here in this story. One is that when the 3M ended up giving in studies that they had done in 1975, 1980. They finally gave them all to the EPA in the late 90s and 2000. Yeah. So that's, 2.5 decades after they did them. You're supposed to give it in immediately if you see that there's evidence of real harm. So they were fined $1.5 million. Right. And what they made on that
I make that a week.
But like in the year that they phased out the chemical, they made $300 million. It was on the so it makes no sense. So we have to make it actually. There have to be consequences for companies that do this kind of thing.
Well, you mentioned the EPA, and there was a new, I forget, guideline that they've set up recently. And this has to do with forever chemicals. And we're using in the article use the term PFAS, right? But that can mean a lot of different. Well,
PFAS is the class of compounds. So and the one chemical that Chris, who was talking about, was discovering was PFOS. That's one chemical in this class. It's called PFAS. The class, there are thousands.
Right.
So. PFOS is not made anymore, but it's still in the drinking water. And EPA recently set drinking water limits for PFOS and PFOA. Yeah. Fabulous. Great. Very great. The only problem is, one, they're no longer made, but there are thousands of chemicals in this class, and we've only gotten, a couple. Yeah. So.
And it's in New York City, drinking water. I mean, it's in everyone's drinking water. And now the challenge is local cities are going to have to find a way to pay for filtering this out.
Right. And there was just a big settlement with 3M where they're going to pay $12.5 billion. And you think, oh, that's a lot of money. And it's not when you have to actually remove these chemicals from water everywhere. And
environmental crime. That's a new term that I recently heard, and when I read your piece, I said, this is environmental crime. 3M has committed assault on us, maybe murder, depending on the classification. Has anyone at 3M, is anybody in trouble?
No.
No.
Not in a criminal way.
Sweet, love this fucking story, you know? It's just...
Yeah, not in a criminal way, but I like the way you put that. It is a crime, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, part of the reason I think it's a crime is because we weren't given any choice in the matter, right? So nobody said, in exchange for this beautiful stain-free couch, we're going to put a toxic chemical in your body and leave it there forever. It wasn't like that. It was, here's this product, and we know this thing, we're not telling you. So it's like bodily trespass, really. Like I mean, these chemicals are in infants when they're born, before they're born.
Right. One of the saddest and scariest parts was when, in the article you talk about, and this is going to be really sad, but how women actually finally showed that they had less forever chemicals in their body, but that was after they gave birth because they'd passed it on to their child.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is a problem. What can you leave us with? Everybody here is now newly aware. Should we call all our Congress people? Should we stop buying plastic? Should we?
Well, I mean, here's something. Here's something really focused we could do.
I like focused.
Like the entire audience.
I mean,
so one of the crazy things is that PFAS are still being, new ones are still being introduced. So we still have thousands that are being used, but they're still introducing new ones.
Yeah.
That is, like, that seems bananas to me, and that seems like a very focused point that we could, you know, do something about.
Yeah. Thank you very much for writing this article. Thank you for coming on The Daily Show and talking with us. You Make Me Sick is available online at The New Yorker and ProPublica. Sharon Lerner.